read the work of Swedenborg. He was an autodidact, a fascinating guy from the 18th century, about whom Immanuel Kant wrote. And he's got a book, a very detailed account of his visit to heaven. Great guy. Wrote billions of books. He's fascinating. Nobody reads him. Is he worth looking at? Okay, so some people believe you could go and come back, that there was a permeable membrane between this world and the next. The Greeks thought of the soul as this movable thing. They called it the pneuma or the psyche. And these words refer to breath. The soul is seen not as a thinking thing, as a kind of abstract entity, but as a breath. When you die, you breathe out. You don't breathe back in. Very simple. You don't think the soul is some kind of immaterial thing. You think of it as a breath. And in Greek mythology, the dead are seen as shades, as kind of insubstantial people who need to drink blood to speak and to retain their immortality. The Greeks do not think existence after death is a good thing in most cases. You're just hanging out, not having any good things happen. You don't have cable, and there's no internet, so you're screwed. You're just hanging around. They don't have a notion that you get, except for very few people, that you get punished in the afterlife. There's nothing good is going on. You're just kind of hanging here harmlessly. It's an empty and a depressive.
When you read about in the Greek myths in like the underworld, it's just like, well, nothing really happens here. It's
Nothing's going on. It's not a good thing. Not a good place. Okay.
People aren't really happy to be there.
You don't want to be there, but you're stuck there. And the problem was, what happened there was their cultural story was, a breath leaves you is clearly something that goes somewhere, but they had no good account of what happened to it. The same with the Egyptians. That's why they provided so much stuff to the other world. They didn't have a lot of faith in that other world. They weren't real happy about what happened there. So if you were rich, you got to go with your Lexus and your big screen TV. You needed that because that wasn't provided over on the other side. It's not a very pleasant place. Okay, so people believed in an afterlife, but not one that was a reward or a punishment. That's very interesting. So, roughly speaking, this is what the Greeks believe. There is some kind of something lives on, but it's not very pleasant. Now, Plato comes along, and he's going to make a huge difference. He's the big philosophy guy in Greece, and he's had a huge impact on our culture. Let me tell you what he's saying. He has a startling notion about the soul and about the afterlife. And he rejects something about it. Let me do very carefully here. Most people, but not all, and I suspect Eliot is one, but not all. He's telling us the truth about it. I don't think he is. Most human beings are only interested in living after death if they live after death. The person with your memories, your associations, your family ties, your feelings. That's cool. If Michael Harden can live after death as Michael Harden, not bad. Right? Or Candle can, fine, you want that. That wouldn't be bad. The problem is that's an absurd hope. That makes the least sense of any theory of dying. But it's what people want, yes.
Say when I was a little kid, I was kind of raised in like a pseudo-Christian household. My family was Unitarian, which is something straight silly. But like I remember just freaking out when I was a kid because I thought heaven sounded really boring. I was just like, it's just not going to be interesting. I'm like, if everything's just perfect all the time, nothing will be fun. And I remember having just a tiny spiritual crisis at like age 6 because I didn't want to be bored in the afterlife.
How many people have had that? I had that same terror at the age of 8 when the priest came in and said it's like sitting in a big stadium watching God. That's really scary. That kept me up. Think about that. You're up there, you can't get out. Forever! And you're getting up on the billionth, think about this, Saturday morning. Go down to the stadium. Think how disgruntled people would be. Oh, Jesus, here we go again. Oh, sit down. There's God. All right, look at him all day. Go home at night with your lunch pail. How many more Saturdays do you have? A billion is nothing. You haven't even started yet. That is a nightmare. That would keep any kid awake. Isn't that horrible? Just a horrifying notion of a deadly, endless boredom. And you can't leave. You can't kill yourself. You can't get out and go to hell, right? There's no exits in heaven. You're completely screwed.
You're making heaven sound like hell.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I don't want to.
It's horrifying. It's just the Catholic thing was fine. I just didn't want to go there. If I could opt out and say, look, forget the afterlife. I'm fine with Jesus. I'm fine. But let me pass on the afterlife. All right? Let me just die like Rose Peralta. But that you can't. This is another little thing about the Christian proposal. There's no out. You ever think about that? If you really believe what the Christians say, there's no exit from the system. You either have to go to hell or you have to go to heaven. You're screwed one way or the other. There's no third option. You can't opt to cease to exist. That's kind of scary. So if you declare for Christ, you're in for the long haul. Okay? You cannot commit suicide if you're a Christian, because what's going to happen? You're going to wake up dead, maybe in hell. Under that description, nobody would ever kill themselves. What's the point? You gain nothing. Suicide's an escape. There isn't any. You're endlessly awake. Just think about that. Christianity is the belief that you never go to sleep. Suicide is impossible. Escape is pointless. It's the most totalitarian, claustrophobic, terrifying system. In which when you were born, it's like you got a maxed out credit card. First information you get is you're overdrawn in the bank. You're a sinner. You're going to hell. You already have a bad FICO score at birth. As soon as you're out of that vagina, you're a debtor. You need some loan modification. So you got to confess your sins even though you haven't done it. And then you're in the system. I remember my first confession at 6 years old. I hadn't done anything. But to join the system, you had to make believe you did. So I made this crap about talking back to my mother, which if I had, I wouldn't have been there for my first confession. She would have been in the pen. But anyway, I made it up. And I learned something profound about Christianity at this. It started a lot. My life as a Christian started with a big fabrication and reset. And I said, oh, now I know. You're not supposed to tell the truth in this system. So just remember that. You get the soul and you get the immortality, but at a huge price. We'll get back into that in a second. Plato says we do have an immortal soul that never dies. It's the part of us that can't die. But the part of us that can't die is the part of us that's associated with knowledge that can't die. It's very simple. There's only one kind of knowledge that does not change or die, and we have access to it. You know what that is? Math. How many people here are good at math? You're saved, brother! What Plato says is essentially this. The evidence that Eliot or anybody in this classroom has an immortal soul resides purely and simply in the fact that we can do arithmetic. In this sense, in order to do arithmetic, you already have to know how to do it. As anybody who's had something explained to him by an exasperated math professor who said, this is perfectly simple, dumbo, and seeing the rage and contempt in the eyes of this person trying to teach you something you just didn't get. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Math is something you get or don't get. The one subject in school where people get at it, they didn't have to study. They just got it.